UFC 290 Volkanovski versus Rodriguez just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, and my overall event recap as well. Let's start straight away with the early prelim opener of Esteban Ribovics versus Kamuela Kirk. I picked Esteban Ribovics to win. Kamuela Kirk did have me worried in that first round because he dominated the first round on back position. But as the fight went on, we started to see Kamuela Kirk slow down a little bit on the feet, and Esteban Ribovics can push a great pace on the feet for 3 rounds. Really, really well conditioned, really good hooks, really good counter shots, really good combinations, and that's what won him this fight against Kamuela Kirk. His combinations, his counter hooks as Kamuela Kirk came in. He had a great moment in round 3 where he was dominating Kamuela Kirk on the feet and really doing a ton of damage to him, and really badly hurting him in round 2 as well. So Esteban Ribovics turns it up in the later rounds, gets his combos working, gets his hands going, and shows what conditioning can really do as an advantage in MMA. Very good win from Esteban Ribovics. I picked him by KO with a hook as Kirk came in, but Kirk showed toughness and a great chin. I say give Kirk another chance. He gave us a decent fight to start off the card. We move on to another fight on the card, which was Jesus Aguilar versus Shannon Ross. I say another fight on the card. This wasn't a fight. They both landed a few shots on each other, and then boom, Jesus Aguilar tags him with a clean right hand, right on the chin, and lays him out cold at flyweight. Now, I said this was going to happen. I said that Jesus Aguilar is going to be a bit too fast for him, and after coming off 2 KO losses back-to-back, I'm worried about Shannon Ross getting KO'd again, especially at flyweight, when there is that speed difference compared to the other weight classes. If you aren't trusting your chin at flyweight and you've just been KO'd twice, it's a problem for you in that division because guys are too fast to be landing on a sus chin. So, great shot from Jesus Aguilar. Got the KO win. Didn't get a performance bonus for it for one of the fastest flyweight KOs of all time. The way I see it is this. Pantoja got his belt. You gave him fight of the night. It was a fight of the night performance, don't get me wrong. Pantoja got the belt. He's set. You know what I mean? He's made some money. You don't need to give Moreno a 50k bonus. Split those 250k bonuses to other people who got finishes on the card. These guys are making 10 for 10. Give them the bonus. Moreno doesn't need the extra 50k. He's been in 6 title fights in a row. We move on to another fight on the card, which was a fight between Cameron Saaiman versus Terrence Mitchell. There was a little bit of worry early on for Cameron Saaiman, but I said this before, his reversals and his transitions to get back up from on bottom position are some of the nastiest, not in the sport, but they're really good for a prospect to have because normally those are some things that people develop way later in their career. But Saaiman has that ability way earlier on in his career from the get-go. Really good sweeps, really good reversals. Hit a nasty reversal on Terrence Mitchell to end back up on top. And once he ended up on top, the difference between them was night and day. He was way busier, way more confident on top, and eventually managed to get himself a very good finish on Terrence Mitchell by securing the back mount, 2 hooks in, flattened out Terrence Mitchell, and just beat him badly. And one thing that he did very well was chasing that far side wrist of Terrence Mitchell. He pushed him down, grabbed that far side wrist, got control, and basically what happened was, if Terrence Mitchell turned to his left, his right wrist was trapped. If he turned to his left, he's revealing his face to get punched. If he turns to his right, he gives up his back. And he chose to turn right. Great positioning from Cameron Saaiman, giving Mitchell no options, and he gets the job done by first round TKO. Dominant performance from him. We move on to another fight up the card, which was Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. Decent fight, I guess. Wasn't anything too crazy, but Vitor Petrino did end up winning the fight. He got an arm triangle in the 3rd round over Marcin Prachnio. Very good scrap between these two. Both guys were landing some decent shots. Prachnio actually had a really good first round over Petrino by landing some really good kicks and shots on Petrino as he came in. And I was worried for Petrino for a second, but it was very obvious yet again that Prachnio's chin was letting him down a little bit. And as the fight went on, you could see Petrino just sort of being like, okay, I don't need to overswing my shots. I just need to land them. And he was just popping out a nice little tight jab, nothing too long range, just a nice short jab on the chin of Prachnio. And eventually you could see Prachnio start wobbling backwards a little bit. And then before too long, Petrino gets his takedown that he needed. He got 4 of them in the fight, got his takedowns that he needed, spent a lot of time on top position as well, and got his submission in the 3rd round. Very, very good job from Vitor Petrino. Good improvements to see from him compared to his debut where he looked quite sloppy. Don't get me wrong, still looked a bit iffy, but he beat Prachnio, who's a solid opponent, so very good job there from Vitor Petrino. He gets the job done. I picked him to win, and he gets it done. We move on. Up the card, Alonzo Menifield versus Jimmy Crute. I picked Jimmy Crute to win. I'm so sorry. The strikes in round 1, though, were 25-11 in favor of Jimmy Crute because he landed about 20 knees to the body in round 1 on Alonzo Menifield. He was winning in the clinch in that fight. Menifield landed a few shots at range because Jimmy Crute's got really high IQ. So what he did was he thought, oh my god, I'm fighting a massive power punching, fast twitch muscle, knockout artist counter puncher. I'll throw empty leg kicks at range to start the fight. I didn't realize Jimmy Crute not only beat dwarfism, but beat downs. But he might not have beat it. I think that battle's still going on. He was throwing open leg kicks, empty leg kicks at range against a counter striker who's got massive power at light heavyweight. And he shot in some takedowns. He got a takedown in the fight, but he didn't get much control time from it. And then towards the end in the 2nd round, instead of pushing him up against the cage again and trying a good takedown, he dove for a double leg at range, shot him, changed to a single leg. Menifield latched up the guillotine. Crute stayed on the single leg. Menifield started squeezing the guillotine. Crute stayed on the single leg, tried to drive Menifield over himself with the single leg, and then eventually ended up in north-south position, still not fighting the hands, laying there, eventually rolling to his back, giving top position to Menifield with the guillotine. Don't know what Crute does. He has good potential at grappling, but the decision-making is tough, man. It really is tough. You can't strike. I saw him throw a lead head kick in the 1st round with no setup. Someone needs to tell him to his face, you need to be a wet blanket and nothing else. We move on. I know he got guillotined, but still. He needs to start round 1 like he started versus Mikhail Alexeychuk, and he'll do well, but he's too dumb. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which was Denise Gomes versus Yazmin Jauregui. And by saying a fight, I don't know if it was a fight. Denise Gomes immediately cracks Yazmin Jauregui with a clean right hook over the top. She landed a right hand and then another right hand to the chin of Yazmin Jauregui and put her down straight away in round 1. Knocked her down, beat her up, finished her off. Yazmin Jauregui, done. Finished, kaput, no chance, got smoked, absolutely derailed. She was one of the best prospects in women's MMA in the past decade. People were really looking at this girl thinking, you know what? This is a future champ. And then Denise Gomes beats her by looking like Gilbert Burns. Sus. We need to do more tests on these women. Thank you very much. Great win from Denise Gomes. Doesn't matter how much skill an opponent has, how much quality she has, never pick against, a Nunes variant of sexuality in the women's divisions. Very good win from Denise Gomes. She gets it done by KO and derails the biggest prospect in women's MMA right now. We move on. Other than maybe Natalia Silva. We move on to another fight on the card, which was Tatsuro Taira versus Edgar Chairez. Decent fight-ish. There were moments where it was a bit sloppy. Tatsuro Taira, he got dropped in round 1. So there was actually a worry for me when it comes to the scorecards here. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was worried when it went to the scorecards here. I saw a lot of people saying, you're delusional. How can you say you were worried about the scorecards? They all had it 29-27, which means they all gave Taira a 10-8 in round 2. He did dominate round 2. I'm not saying that's a bad call to call it a 10-8, but I'm just saying we've seen lesser dominant rounds that weren't given 10-8s. Either way, they're giving out 10-8s a bit easier now, which is good. Taira gets a 10-8 in round 2 on every judge's scorecard, which is weird. Round 1, he gets dropped other than dominating, so he does lose that round. Round 3 was pretty competitive on the feet. Chairez landed the better shots. Taira had top position, don't get me wrong, and he was on top for that round, and he had some good top control and landed a few ground and pound shots, but then he gets nearly put out in a guillotine in round 3. So although there's control time for Taira, that was a fight where I was like, if they really want to get criteria heavy here, they could maybe give Chairez this. So I was surprised that no judge gave that to Chairez. But a judge gave Jalen round 3 against Hooker, and a judge gave Moreno round 5 against Pantoja. Weird scorecards today. But Taira gets it done. Looks good outside of a few shaky moments. The stand-up is something that we now know needs a bit more work. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how that goes moving forward. But Taira gets the win, and that's all he needs. We move on to another fight up the card, which was Robbie Lawler versus Niko Price. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. I don't care if I get hate for this. I thought it was a rigged KO when I first saw it. I watched it back. He landed a lot more shots than I remember. Okay, I thought, oh my god, it's a KO. Like, they were in a single collar. Lawler didn't look like he put too much heat behind those shots, and it just must have been a perfect collection of shots on Niko Price that was just rattling his head around. Eventually, the last one lands on his temple and just sends him down to the canvas, KO'd. He got hit with a good left hook immediately. The next one missed from Lawler, and then the uppercut, and then another left hook, which is just crazy to me, man. Amazing win from Robbie Lawler. I'm going to say this right now. That fight wasn't rigged. Lawler gets a hero send-off. Absolutely amazing. Dominant win. KO in the first round. Should have got a performance bonus, but I get it. They don't want to give it to him. He's leaving the sport. They'd rather give it to Moreno, the millionaire champion. Either way. Robbie Lawler was holding back against Nick Diaz. You cannot tell me that's not true. After watching what Lawler just did to Niko Price in the clinch, in a single collar, whilst not even putting too much swing into his shots, you cannot tell me he was not holding back against Nick Diaz. He was obviously holding back against Nick Diaz, so obviously in that fight. It actually swayed my opinion of Lawler for this matchup. If I knew he had held back and let Nick Diaz make it to the third round, maybe I would have picked him here. But he showed up with a different level of intensity today, and I don't want to be salty about it, man. Robbie Lawler, legend of the sport, one of the most exciting fighters of all time, always put on a show, was great as a champion, great as a contender, and now great as a veteran outside the rankings. What more can you ask for from Robbie Lawler's career? He's had all of it. He's been a champ. He's defended the belt. He's had big wins. He's fought big names. He's been on big positions on cards. I wish he would have been on the main card here because it would have been a better send-off for him. But what a KO he gets over Niko Price. And I don't know who Niko Price beats moving forward because that is too easy of a KO loss. And I'm worried about Niko Price's chin. He has taken some damage throughout the years. Amazing win by Robbie Lawler. Great KO. One of my favorite fighters of all time. Good to see him leave on a win, even if I was wrong. We move on to another fight up the card, which was Bo Nickal versus Val Woodburn. This is interesting. Bo Nickal's not going to get credit for this win because he was expected to win. But I'm going to tell you right now, I saw a weird amount of people picking Val Woodburn in the build-up here. Most of the comment sections about Bo Nickal's fight with Val Woodburn was like, I actually think Val Woodburn's going to win. And then as soon as Bo Nickal dominates him, it's like, yeah, he was that big of a favorite for a reason, no? Everyone was saying the odds were crazy. I was saying the odds were crazy. Bo Nickal, although he has a wrestling background, he's 4-0. This guy's a 7-0 tanky guy. I mean, one of the top comments that I saw left on one of the posts about Bo Nickal, which was absolutely crazy. I'm going to get to it in a second, see if I can find it here. But there was a comment that they made about Bo Nickal where it's like, maybe I'll be able to find it. Here we go. His opponent was in his couch eating junk food 48 hours ago, lol, and wasn't even a UFC fighter and isn't one now, lol. One of the top comments. Val Woodburn had a fight in August booked. He was in training camp. You know what I mean? He was in training camp for that fight. I don't understand what Bo Nickal can do to win over the fans here. Dominated. Clean KO win. No one's going to give him the respect he deserves. But for this new... He didn't have 2 fights as an amateur? Then he goes pro, wins a fight, and he's on the Contender Series? His record is like one of the most unpadded records of all time when you think about it from the get-go. I know Alex Pereira had some good... but Alex Pereira took it a bit easier than this early on. He's 5-0 right now, Bo Nickal. Okay? Pereira had lost by now, by the way, in his debut. But he fought an 0-0 guy in his debut, 3-0 guy in his second fight, 7-1 guy, 13-8 UFC Jamie Pickett. Then 7-0 Woodburn. He's not fighting schmucks. These are guys with good wins. They're just middleweights, so they aren't good regardless of their win streak. But he dominates, lands a good right hook. I didn't think this was going to happen. I thought he was going to shoot a takedown early. Maybe he gets caught by a big shot. If he gets the takedown, he wins. He times it so well. He makes Woodburn think about the takedown. I don't even think he went for that takedown that failed in that fight. I think he just clashed with Woodburn just to see what he's thinking. Just clash into him and separate. Didn't look like he really went for the hips. But he lands a right hook on the inside of Woodburn's. Then moves out again. Left hook. Dips out again. Right hook. Boom. Uppercut. Puts down Woodburn. At first I was like, maybe they should give him more time to recover. But then once the referee stepped in, Woodburn started grabbing the referee's arm and trying to wrestle his way back up. So you know he was out of it badly. And Bo Nickal gets a wicked first round KO. Great job by him. The hype continues. I say put him on that MSG card. Maybe on the prelims. You know, sometimes people end up hating these prospects when they're pushed too much. Everyone hates the guy that's pushed too much, but they love the guy that isn't pushed enough. There's got to be a healthy balance with some of these prospects. That's what we need to see. I hate the word prospects. We move on to another fight up the card, which was Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner. Wow. Unbelievable performance from Dan Hooker. I honestly, maybe it was because of the weight miss from Jalen Turner. Whatever. He looked like he had a mark on his arm as well. Whatever. Even with the weight miss, I was like, oh, it's even better for Jalen. He's going to be heavy. He didn't even have to drain himself to depletion. He's going to be heavy for this fight. Even with the weight miss, I thought Jalen was a lock. I thought he easily beats Dan Hooker. No way Dan Hooker beats Jalen Turner. Dan Hooker gets it done, you know, with that granite chin that's still intact. Great body work as well from both of them with the teeps to the body and the kicks to the body. Both guys were landing those. Dan Hooker was landing some solid body shots as well with punches. I think that might have been the difference maker. He just took the body shots a bit better than Jalen Turner did. People are confused about the scoring here. How are people confused about the scoring? People are calling robbery for... Oh my God, I didn't even talk about the craziest thing. I'm going to get to it. This fight comes down to round 2. Jalen got dominated in round 3-ish. It was close. It was a competitive round. And then Dan Hooker in round 3 dropped Jalen Turner badly and stayed on top and landed damage towards the end of that round. Okay? A judge gave the 3rd round to Jalen Turner. Adelaide Bird gave the 3rd round to Jalen Turner. He got dominated and dropped in that round. That is a pre-written rigged scorecard, and I won't hear otherwise. Round 2 was competitive, but the way I see it is this. Dan Hooker landed more significant strikes that round, 40-34. Although both came close to finishing each other, why is this even a conversation, dude? Dan Hooker won the fight clearly. Why are people like, I don't know about that. Who knows how to score that 2nd round? So obviously you know how to score that 2nd round. Jalen hurts Dan Hooker early on, but he stays patient. He doesn't pour it on and beat up Dan Hooker for ages in that round. They go back for being tit for tat. Jalen's getting the better of the stand-up, don't get me wrong. But then Dan Hooker rocks Jalen Turner and goes on like a 10-punch swarm streak all over Jalen Turner, landing good shots to the body and the head against the cage, going for Jalen Turner. Turner is not a little bit wobbled like Hooker was, where he immediately snaps back into it. He was badly hurt where he wasn't recovering back into it, and he was visibly running around like Whittaker was against Duplessis. Hooker wins that round, and not to mention, he gets on top at the end of the round and cinches up a rear naked choke. It's on the chin, but it's so latched up, it's in. With an extra 10 seconds in round 2, Jalen's tap into that rear naked choke. How do you give that round to Jalen Turner? You have to give it to Dan Hooker. Came closer to finishing the fight, had the submission attempt, and he beat him up that round towards the end after rocking him. So, no controversy. The weight bully, absolute idiot, gets beaten. I'm so happy about that. What a weight bully freak. 6'3", can't make 155. Here you are trying to bully him, dude. Well, get bullied back by Dan Hooker. It do stand up, baby. And Dan Hooker broke his arm in that fight as well. But I'm not over this. Round 3 being scored to Jalen Turner is a rigged scorecard, pre-written. He got dropped in that round. There's no way you can give that round to him. We move on to Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker. I made a video about this already. Dricus just beats Whittaker, and before you tell me, Whittaker was ahead and he caught him, 62-31 on significant strikes. Got the knockdown in the fight as well, 74-32 on totals. Got the takedown, had better control time on top, did more with top position. Actually was looking for a dash choke at one point that Whittaker had to roll out of. Cut open Whittaker with an elbow of ground and pound. Dropped him in the second, followed up and finished him off with a body shot. Such a nasty performance from Dricus du Plessis. So out of left field. Even Dricus can admit there's a reason he was the underdog going into this one. He knows how good Whittaker is. We all know how good Whittaker is. But I think something that got exposed about Whittaker in this fight, I've already spoken about the Adesanya stuff, about his eugenics rant that he had about du Plessis. So I'm not going to go into that in this video. I'm just going to talk about the fight a bit more. Whittaker doesn't have finishing worry. There's no worry for his opponent like, oh no, I could get flatlined. There is with du Plessis. And that was the big difference here. The aura that both of them had in the pocket, Whittaker's was... du Plessis was in the pocket, you know what I mean? They were in the pocket, Whittaker was du Plessis was you know what I mean? Proper Giga Chad in it, out of Whittaker. And just whenever the both of them clashed, there was a different fear from either of them. Du Plessis had nothing to worry about from Whittaker other than maybe being outpointed to a decision. Whittaker had everything to worry about with du Plessis. The power... The grappling, I guess, as well. Like, it was just a different du Plessis than we've seen. And this is a guy who has a chance against Whittaker, against Adesanya. So, we'll see what happens to him. We move on. Great win from du Plessis. Didn't see it coming. We move on to another fight up the card. Alejandro Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno 2. I don't think this is a bad decision. Of course, Moreno fans can never accept when they get done over and they don't have a good decision go their way. I mean, Moreno fans think that he won the trilogy against Figueiredo, even though Figueiredo dropped him in rounds 3 and 5, winning those rounds. Moreno fans think that Moreno won one of those rounds he was dropped in, which is absolutely ridiculous, of course. This was a very close fight. The Weasel, I'm going to say it right now, the Weasel could make a video which says Moreno did more damage and maybe won that fight. I'm not even going to take that away from him. But one thing that people are very, very downplaying is that Pantoja was landing some really good shots as well and doing his own damage. Absolutely doing his own damage in that round. In that fight, he was landing shots to the body on Moreno. Occasionally, he was finishing his exchanges with leg kicks. He was landing good hooks on the inside on Moreno as well. Moreno was landing good and he was looking better on the feet. But Pantoja just kept pushing. And whenever it got worrisome for him on the feet, hard blast double leg takedown. All grit, all heart, shoots it, and gets dominant position. I picked Pantoja to win this one. On damage, again, you can go Moreno's way. It's 3-2 either way, though. Pantoja obviously gets the first. He drops he drops Moreno in the first. I thought he was going to get the sub then and there, and I was going to be a genius by picking first round finish because I knew there was a power difference between them. We saw that in their last fight. I'm farting. Either way, he gets the knockdown in round 1. I can't even remember how the rest of the fight looked. Was it round 3 where he got the back again and he spent time on the back towards the end of the round and spent some time on top? He had a lot of time on top of Moreno, and he was doing good in those positions to actually actively threaten submissions. Even though he had no submission attempts, because it wasn't locked in any way, he actually did have good subs in terms of, like, he was going for it across the chin. Even though it wasn't in, he was going for stuff. At one point, he was going for an arm triangle on Brandon Moreno as well. So I think what it came down to is, although Moreno was, like, maybe slightly up on damage, the judges were like, this was close. Moreno was kind of ahead, but Pantoja spent the last minute and a half on his back looking for a choke. So we kind of have to go Pantoja's way. It was a very close fight. I don't think it was a robbery. I'm going to have to rewatch it, of course, to see how much damage Moreno was really doing, because although he was landing big shots, it was just Pantoja wasn't reacting as much to them. At the end of round 4, though, he did actually look like he was in some danger, but Moreno just didn't do enough at the end of that round. Maybe he could have got round 4, though. It could have been 2-2 or 3-1 Pantoja going into the fifth, which I think is an appropriate score. Although Moreno outlanded Pantoja in round 5, Pantoja got on the back of Moreno and had back position, had top position in that round as well, had the back position locked in, body triangled up, on the back standing, and was landing punches on Moreno and looking to fish. At one point, he was across the jaw on Moreno in round 5. I'm going to say it right now. A judge, Ben Cartilage, had this 4-1 Moreno and gave him the 5th round, where it was basically pretty even until, and maybe Moreno was slightly ahead, until Pantoja took his back for the last minute and a half of the round, landed shots, and looked for the choke. How can you give round 5 to Moreno? It's round 2 and 4, or 3 and 4. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. Round 2 and 4 or 3 and 4, those are the argument rounds. Not round 5. Pre-written scorecard, rigged, just like Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker. I'm sick of it. It's so blatantly obvious nowadays. I'm sick of it. We move on. Great win from Pantoja, though. Amazing performance. They're definitely going to run it back because it was such a great fight. Royval's not getting a title shot next. They're not going to do Pantoja Royval. They're probably going to give Moreno his infinite title rematches and see if he can win this one again, or in the first place, because now he's down 0-3 technically, so we'll see what happens. Pantoja Moreno, great fuck. It was such a good fight, though. I need to give it more credit. I should have done a whole video for this fight. I hate that we're talking about the scores. It was such a good fight. They were both scrapping, both getting into it, and both had moments where momentum was swaying, and then it was just the difference maker was Pantoja was just better at grappling. Simple as that. He was better at grappling, had better positional control, and that's sort of what I said would happen, right? I said the grappling would be the difference, the power would be the difference, and although Moreno was landing good shots, it wasn't getting the same respect that Pantoja was getting out of Moreno. And something else you also have to look at is that Pantoja took some damage to his eye and had blood on his nose, but Moreno was also really busted up to the lip, to the eye. He was cut in that fight as well. I'm fighting again. Either way, he took a lot of visible damage, and I think that's also what the referee and the judges were looking at as well. Very close fight. Great scrap. Anytime you thought it was about to go one way, someone would change the momentum. Pantoja's having a moment on the feet. Boom, Moreno tags him with a combo. Moreno's tagging him with a combo. Boom, blast double leg from Pantoja, ends up on top, taking the back. Crazy fight. Amazing to watch. We move on to another fight in the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. One of the best performances in featherweight history. This was one of the most dangerous contenders for Volkanovski. A lot of people were picking Yair, more than we'll care to admit. They were a lot out there in all of the comment sections picking Yair Rodriguez. Even the Weasel picks Yair. A lot of people in the know were picking Yair. And I was even thinking in the build-up to this fight, Yair could get him with a head kick, dude. Yair could get him. If Holloway can in the second fight of their trilogy, then Yair can. But I said Volk's grappling is going to be on a different level. And if you're being taken down by Holloway and you're being mounted by Holloway in the later rounds, Volk's going to do it way worse. And that's what happened here. Round 1, Volk has a perfect start, gets the takedown, drags Yair to the corner. Very smart, giving him no space for elbows and no space for submissions. Stacks guard and beats him up on the ground in round 1. And you could see after round 1, Yair was like, well, that's the worst way this could have started. And you could see him on the corner breathing heavy already and his eye swollen up already. Volk already had swelling under his eye, so he didn't actually take too much damage. He got elbowed and cut over his eye once. But other than that, he didn't take much damage in that fight visibly. Second round, Volk gets the clinch against the cage, gets his trip to end up on top of Yair again. And it was just like, oh my God, Yair's going to get dominated here. As soon as Volk got a half guard anytime, being a shorter opponent on top in half guard is so good. It's so overpowered in MMA because you have such good localized weight over your opponent. And think about it like this. From half guard, sure, you can try get guard back and then get back up. But from half guard, the way you want to get back up is to turtle in and get real close in deep half and try and get back up from there and get your base under you. Short guys can do that, right? Because they can tuck up and get their body weight all nice and tucked up and then stand from those positions. That's where we see guys just get back up like Volk used to do against Mendes and other fighters like that. But Yair Rodriguez was just too frail, too tall. Volk had localized weight, right on the center, right on top of him, half guard, locked him down, and just stayed smart from there. Eventually, the mount started giving itself to him. Round 3, Yair had better moments on the feet, landing some decent shots. But as per usual, Alexander Volkanovski does what he does. After a headbutt, which wasn't his fault, people are saying intentional. He wasn't going for a headbutt. His head was literally tracing towards like the stomach of Yair. It looked like he was going to try and enter the clinch after his punch. Yair ducked down and got clipped by the forehead of Volk, or the top of the head of Volk, right on his jaw. But he got time off. It didn't cause any swelling. It didn't break his jaw. Probably just caused him a bit of pain. He took a minute and a half off or something like that. Recomposed himself. Actually better for him to get a bit of a breather there, because he needed all the breathers he can get in that fight. And came back when he was good to go and said he was good. And Volk got right back to beating him up. Caught him with a right hook. Wobbled him. Followed up against a cage. Body shots, head shots, blast double, drag him to the ground. Big slam. And gets him out of there by TKO. Amazing win by Volk. I did decent on picks on this card. I don't know what I went on picks. I think I went 5-3 on the prelims after Robbie Lawler got the upset against Price. And I went maybe like, 3-2 on the main card. So what is that? 5-3, 3-2. That's 8-5. Not bad for a card like this with a bunch of upsets. Yet again, I got the Pantoja one, which I'm happy about because I said he would be flyweight champ by the end of 2023. And now he is. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip.